Did you diddle any cosplayers?
That she's been going since she was a fetus. So
You can beat it into a kid, though. Belt!
So I bet I could do stitches on myself. If I can craft, I can sew up a wound.
So for me, I said, fuck it, I'm not going.
Dried boogers.
I'm sorry.
Like, no,
that nasal crust. Like little coconut shavings, just rimming each of their nostrils. Nothing counts because I'm not a comedian.
Welcome to the show. I am that Chris Gore. This is PodCRASH. This is the show where you get to hear a different podcast each week where I appear as a guest. This episode of the show, I'm crashing Pointless. That's right, Pointless with Kevin Pereira, my old colleague, my old buddy from G4 TV.
Oh, wow.
Man, I got to be on his show. But I actually have a special guest with me, and you'll hear from the loud sounds around you that I'm actually at D23 with my good buddy Doug Barnes from Season Pass, the theme park podcast.
It's exciting here, Chris. I mean, it's really exciting to be able to have the chance to do this, to be able to get out to D23 with you, and you're pretty impressed right now, right?
Oh my God, it's fun. Basically, this is like... it's like Comic-Con, except you can actually get into stuff, and it's also Comic-Con where it's all Disney themed. So everything from Disney animation, Pixar movies, Disney live action films. We've seen some presentations from Imagineers talking about future of the theme park and future innovations that the Walt Disney Company is working on.
Yeah.
But we should talk about that before we get into the Pointless podcast this week. You invited me to come to this to be on a podcast called Mice Chat.
Yeah,
Tell me about Mice Chat.
So that's basically what's going on right now is that I've been doing the Season Pass podcast for almost 6 years now. And I decided why stop there? Let's do something else. So I got with the guys over at micechat.com, and they've been wanting to do a podcast. And we talked, and I was like, I could produce a show for you. So we started up the Mice Chat podcast, and it's been a huge hit for us. I mean, it's been absolutely amazing. We have had a lot of fun with it. And now we started the Mice Pod, which is like it's a full-on theme park network, and it's becoming huge for us. And we're really excited. Of course, I put the Season Pass podcast in there with it, and now we get to do stuff like this, D23, which I wasn't sure how it was going to be. I thought I was going to be a little bit, underwhelmed, but it's been awesome.
Well, what's funny, I mean, you can obviously tell from the sound that we're actually walking through the exhibit hall.
Through the exhibits right now.
Yeah, there's...
getting the great looks from people going like, what's...
Yeah, what are these guys with this weird recording device?
He's got a laser in his hands.
What is this? It looks like a strange... Yeah. It looks like the ultimate nullifier used by Reed Richards from... That's what these Zoom H4n looks like. Anyways, so we're walking through the collector's forum, actually, which I'm seeing a giant wall of pins, Disney pins, for $2 a piece.
We have park maps right beside us.
Oh my God,
here.
old school park maps.
Sold.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh my gosh,
and all kinds of
them to its next level.
All kinds of fan art and whatnot. So this is the collector's area. Then there's another area where you're able to just look at all things Disney. There's an official Disney store. There's an Imagineering exhibit.
Right, now look at this. And now you got C3PO
oh, that's
right
interesting.
Here, and you have all the characters within right outside the eyes here of C3PO. So
it's reflected. You'll see someone did a piece of fan art of C3PO, and reflected in it is, of course, actually a scene from Return of the Jedi, which is funny. We should bring that up. We talk about these different presentations, but first thing, the reason I really wanted to come to D23 is because now Star Wars is a part of the Disney family.
It is. And Lucasfilm. It's Disney owns it now, and I think that we're going to finally see Lucasfilm get what all of us fans wanted, which is a true Star Wars film.
A Star Wars movie with Han, Luke, and Leia rather than the prequels. We don't want to talk about the prequels. I think I've talked about that enough.
No such thing. What are you talking about, Chris?
But I came here really hoping for some Episode 7 news. We know that J.J. Abrams directing it. We know Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill are back. We also just recently learned that John Williams will return to do the score. That's going to be great. Yeah. But when Disney did their big presentation about live action, they said, we're so excited that Lucasfilm and we're making Episode 7 and we have nothing to tell you. The audience groaned, and you could hear an audible, They almost booed, but I think people were just like, it would have been almost rude to boo.
It would have been, but I'm sure there's quite a few what the hell's going on out there, People must be thrilled.
What was awesome is I don't get the opportunity to get into Hall H anymore. It's just so difficult to get into Hall H at Comic-Con in San Diego. I really think they have to move that thing to Petco Park. Just move it, put it in Petco Park, put up a big tent, have room for 20, 30,000 people, kind of section off. That way everyone can come and go as they please. You don't have to sit through panels that you don't want to see the one that you do want to see. But here at D23, we got into everything, no problem, and they really are accommodating. So the first thing we saw was the animation presentation, which was the first day.
By John Lasseter.
John Lasseter came out and showed us everything that's happening and we should talk about what we saw. We saw a movie a preview of a film called Inside Out, which is really fascinating Pixar movie about what happens in the brain.
Yeah.
And there's characters that represent different emotions. That was really cool. We saw a preview of a film called The Good Dinosaur. That was pretty amazing. And then what else did we see? They showed us so much.
Well, there's so much going on at Pixar. Of course, they talked a bit about Monsters University. We got to see the new short that's going to come out for the next Pixar, which is the Good Dinosaur.
Oh, and then we saw that they showed there's a Toy Story Halloween special.
That's right. We got to see the first 10 minutes, and it looks freaking awesome.
It looks so good. So they're doing a Toy Story half-hour short that is going to show around Halloween. That's, what is it, the Toy Story of Terror or something?
I can't do that.
Something, but it looks a lot like what they do with Matt Groening and The Simpsons, kind of like what they're doing.
Yeah, Toy Story Simpsons version, right? To Treehouse.
In a way, which is fine because actually what they're doing, though, they're doing it right. They're airing it around Halloween, whereas unfortunately it seems like Matt Groening always gets boned.
Misses.
It's always like because of football season, they end up running the Halloween special for The Simpsons always runs after Halloween, which makes no sense. Disney's getting it right. I think it premieres October 16th on ABC. So we got to see the first 10 minutes of that, which was awesome. And then we got to see that short, that Monsters U short, which is going to actually screen before Good Dinosaur. Yeah, so we got to actually see that whole thing. So that was great. The animation presentation was awesome. I was really looking forward to the live action presentation because I thought we'd see something of Star Wars. We didn't, but we did get a glimpse into what I think is going to be one of the best movies of 2013, which is Saving Mr. Banks.
Saving Mr. Banks looks amazing, and this is what we've been saying.
We should talk about what it is. Saving Mr. Banks is the story of Tom Hanks plays Walt Disney. Emma Thompson plays the woman who wrote Mary Poppins.
That's what she is. The woman who wrote.
Yeah, well,
Mary Poppins.
No, I forget her name. I
don't know.
But
we're clueless.
What's cool is it's about Disney's 20-year mission to get Mary Poppins made into a film, and he has to convince her to do it, even though she doesn't want any music in it. She doesn't want it to be Disney-fied. And Tom Hanks plays Walt Disney. We saw about 10 minutes of the movie. It looks incredible. I'm talking like funny,
fantastic.
Chills.
It's going to be in the Oscars. You're going to hear it all 3 Oscars. I guarantee you guys. Everybody.
It's going to be an Oscar contender. It's one of those looks at where the industry looks at itself. I mean, we saw the Hitchcock movie with Anthony Hopkins, which I thought was brilliant. This is another. This is sort of another one in that genre now. The industry take a look at itself. But the funny story that they told is that Tom Hanks would actually walk around. Disney. He would walk around the Disney studios dressed as Walt Disney and break into meetings and pretend to be Walt.
Yeah,
that was hysterical. Well, and we saw a lot of stars too. Oh, Angelina Jolie.
Angelina Jolie was there. Natalie Portman was there. Bill Hader came out multiple times during the animation one, and they had a great running joke about him being in every single Pixar film now.
It was great. It was like a Hall H level presentation with. All the stars coming out. Angelina Jolie was there to promote Maleficent, which comes out next year, 2014.
She looks good as Maleficent.
She's amazing. She's very hot. Angelina and I have a history with her. I've interviewed her a couple times, but that's a story for another podcast. Because we realize now we're not just podcasters, we're podcasteers.
We're podcasteers. That's brilliance. That's all that Chris Gore coming
Imagineers,
up with that.
Podcasteers.
Podcasteers. He was inspired from all this Disney-ness that's going on around here.
Well, let's talk about the Marvel stuff we saw, because we effectively saw all the stuff that I didn't get to see at Comic-Con in San Diego. We saw the little teaser for Avengers 2 Age of Ultron. Yeah. We saw an extended look at Thor, which was this scene with Natalie Portman's character, which I thought was great. I don't want to give anything away. And then another extended scene from Captain America the Winter Soldier, where Captain America kicks ass in like a small space. He's surrounded by these dudes in this elevator, and it just
at least 2 of those guys had to have died from the ass kicking that they got, right?
Things go down. It was pretty awesome. But getting a look at Marvel, I mean, it's like amazing. I believe that actually this might be a controversial thing to say, but I actually think that Disney, Star Wars being at Disney, I think Disney will actually take better care of the franchise than the creator, George Lucas.
I agree 100% with
I feel terrible saying that because I love George. I love George for what he did. I mean, he created, I don't think there would be conventions like Comic-Con and San Diego if not for Lucasfilm. But I feel that Disney wants to please the fans. We were at this panel I was at this panel about Star Wars, and someone asked, are you guys going to release the original theatrical versions, not the special editions, theatrical versions of Star Wars on Blu-ray?
Did they say no?
The applause in the audience. I feel like when it comes to actually DVD, I will say that I think Disney has done everything right.
Yeah.
When you buy a Disney, I'm not just kissing ass here. I'm just saying that, like, why don't other companies do the same thing Disney does? When you buy a Disney on Blu-ray, you're buying the Blu-ray, you're buying the standard def DVD, for the DVD player that you may have in your car or whatever, and you get the download all in one package. It's a little pricier, but you're getting all the things that you want.
Yeah.
So I hope in some way they re-release a Blu-ray version of Star Wars with even more stuff. So the Marvel presentation was fantastic, and we got our first glimpse, my first glimpse anyway, of Guardians of the Galaxy. What do you think?
Guardians of the Galaxy. Dude, I'm telling you now, I remember this comic book. It wasn't a very big comic book when it came out. But all I kept on saying is that it wouldn't ever work because you can't make a raccoon, who is one of the characters in it, to be able to
they did it.
Oh, my God, did they do it.
James Gunn, who is a friend of mine I've known for years from the indie film world. He did one of my favorite movies from a couple years ago with Rainn Wilson, Super, which I highly recommend.
On Netflix now, people.
Put it in your queue. Put in your queue or get the Blu-ray. Super is a completely different take on the superhero film, which is, I'm sure, what helped James get the job. But Guardians of the Galaxy just looks awesome. Chris Pratt from Parks and Rec is in it as the lead. He plays Star-Lord. Yeah.
And don't you love how the fact that in D23, this is a family-friendly environment. So when they're doing the part where they're talking about him, whatever, and he starts cranking up the middle finger, had this big old black mesh all over the finger.
Right. All right, so now we're walking through all the exhibits here. There's a 3-hour wait actually just to get into the Disney store to buy the official D23 merch.
Well, now it looks like finally that it's died down because this is Sunday. It's not the sold out day. But yeah, people are waiting 3 hours to buy some fucking D23 shit that I just don't. I don't get that whole thing. I just don't get it. But it's quite amazing that you spend all this money to get into it, and then you wait in line for store merch? It's cool. If you're into it, you're into it, right?
If there's one thing I know about Disney fans, they love to wait in lines. There's a whole... Well, you were telling me, because we were talking about... We went to the Imagineering panel, which I thought was... The Imagineering panel was an inspiration, but Disney studies the science of things you wouldn't necessarily even have a use for. They're not sure how they're going to use it. I mean, the one thing I thought was fascinating is the science... behind lines and how people queue up and what their tolerance is for waiting and how they wait and how crowds move. I mean, they really study the science of all that stuff. Right, Norm?
Right, Norm.
Sure thing.
Norm from mychat.com.
How's it going, guys?
We are doing. We're actually
PodCRASH by Norm.
Well, we're doing my podcast actually. PodCRASH. This is my little wraparounds for my latest episode.
Oh, a little reach around.
A little reach around wraparound
Nice.
For my show.
Nice.
But what have you seen? What have you seen that you think is the best thing here, Norm?
Geez. Well, that's going to take some time to think.
All right, while you're thinking about that, we're gonna be like just going ADD freaking out at just all the cool stuff to check out.
Some of the really cool things were in the Imagineering Pavilion. Being able to speak directly to the Imagineers who build the stuff.
Yeah.
There's nothing in there new to see, but being able to talk to the people who do it, really cool.
And you know what I happen to love too? It's gonna sound a little weird for me to say this, but I love the Disney princesses. I love walking around and seeing not just the Disney princesses.
You've been taking a picture of every single one you've seen.
Not everyone, but it's weird because I love
another agenda going on, really.
But there's a whole variations. Like I saw 2 girls dressed as, one was the Lone Ranger and one was Tonto, the sort of female versions. And I've seen at conventions.
That's an interesting take.
That's true. The Lone Rangeress? I don't know.
Rangeress.
Who knows?
I don't know.
Who knows? But this is my first D23, and I really want to thank you, Doug, for getting me this and for having me on Mice Chat and all the multiple episodes of Season Pass that I've appeared on.
Hey, you know what? You're always welcome on the Season Pass. We love doing it, and I'm really excited to do this with you right now. And that's really cool that you did Kevin Pereira's podcast. I can't wait to hear it.
Kevin, Kevin is having worked with him for 8 years on. It wasn't even Attack of the Show when I was first there. It was the Screensavers. And the one thing about Kevin, because a lot of people ask me about him, and the guy's got a great sense of humor. He's so quick. I have to stop and sometimes just sort of digest things that he would say to me on camera. But his off-camera demeanor was just amazing. He was always just so nice. As much as he would push the limits when we were on camera live doing Attack of the Show, off camera, the sweetest. I mean, the guy is a gentleman and
awesome.
The best person I've worked with in television, bar none.
Good.
Kevin
I'm glad
Pereira.
to hear he's not
I'm
an
serious.
asshole.
See that, that's pretty cool.
Not a lot, but Kevin was. But it's funny because everyone, when I was at Comic-Con and when I've even been here at D23, people will come up to me and they come up to me like somebody died, like, oh man, so sorry about Attack of the Show. Oh, I'm so sorry. And I feel like it's for me, it's I don't mind talking about it. I'm hey, I think they made a mistake by discontinuing the show, whatever. But I feel like it's also I'm tired of talking about it. It's like talking about an ex-girlfriend where it's we've been broken up for over a year. Do I want to keep talking about it? That's kind of how I feel a little bit about Attack of the Show. I'm doing other stuff. I'm doing, obviously, my podcast. I'm my stand-up comedy album, Celebrities Poop, which you can get at celebritiespoop.com.
Amazing book. It's one of my favorite reads this year.
Norm, now you didn't even know anything about me. I gave you a copy of Celebrities
I had no
Poop.
idea, and you had me at poop.
Make a big poop, and some make a small poop. Some wear a diaper when they make their doo-doo. All celebrities poop, yeah, all celebrities poop.
So you can get my comedy album in a book. It's actually just went up on iTunes this week. So if you want to just download the album, you can get it on iTunes. If you want to get the album in the book, only available at celebritiespoop.com. And we talk about it on the Pointless podcast. But I do think it's we've all moved on to other projects. I mean, obviously, Chris Hardwick's doing all his stuff with The Nerdist. Olivia Munn, very successful with Newsroom. Kevin doing Pointless as well as producing other shows. I'm working on a couple of animated shows that I don't want to talk about everything about those yet till I have specifics to announce. But just want to thank you guys for having me at D23. We're going to actually try and get into Club 33 today. Isn't that right?
We are getting into Club 33.
What is Club 33? Wait, for my listeners, because these aren't listeners, my listeners don't necessarily listen to theme park podcasts. Tell me what Club 33 is. I think my listeners know what Walt Disney World is. What is Club 33?
Club 33 is basically the Uber super. What would you call it, Norm? It's
I would call it the exclusive dining club inside Disneyland. And it's the only place that you can get booze inside Disneyland.
Alcohol in Disneyland. That's all I'm saying.
Unless you're smart enough to bring in a flask like me.
Legally get booze in Disneyland.
That's the disclaimer, legally good. So if everything goes well, I might actually record something from within Club 33.
I think we should record something within.
You think we should do
after some booze, it might even be better. I bet you anything right now.
This podcast...
Yeah, this could be pretty awesome.
It could get more interesting.
Yeah.
So
end up in Mickey jail. I don't know.
Have a couple of Gertinis after our man Bob Gurr.
They only can do cheese and water there.
Explain who Bob Gurr is, because Bob Gurr I know from I know he's famous for having designed, built the monorail at Disneyland, but he's one of the most famous old school Imagineers.
Absolutely, he is basically when Disneyland opened up, they needed somebody to build all these moving things, cars, stuff on the Main Street for and the monorail, like you said, trains. Talking about the Haunted Mansion, the Doom buggies that you ride in.
He designed the Omnimover.
Yeah, he designed
the Omnimover system. He designed the track for the Matterhorn.
Did he design Circle-Rama? Because was it?
No.
Is it called Circle-Rama? Did I get that right?
Well, no, the original was Circle-Rama.
Circle Vision?
But then it became Circle Vision. But that's
I
not even his
loved
deal.
Circle Vision when I was about 12.
But this is what we're going to talk about with Bob Gurr, and everybody needs to know this. The man is a guy who basically created audio animatronics. So Lincoln, what's this, Norm? No.
So the modern...
Yeah.
Did he?
He's
All right.
the man behind. He's the man behind. Well, maybe he didn't fully create it, but he's the man that engineered and made Lincoln for the World's Fair. So
he did everything that moves inside Disneyland vehicle-wise.
Yeah, and
Did he
the
do the-
submarines.
And, the submarines.
Did he do the dinosaurs? Because I love the dinosaurs, and when you go back in time, that
Oh, no.
that always would freak me out as a kid. The way they had this giant vista, it was
Yeah.
like I love that. So, really want to thank you. We're going to try to get into Club 33, but give a listen to the Pointless podcast with Kevin Pereira. You're going to hear. You're about to hear highlights.
I can't wait
from
to
the.
hear it.
You're about to hear highlights
excited
from the
to
show, which
Hear it, but what's the point?
which was recorded. It was recorded at the. It was recorded at the exactly.
that was
There you go.
nice. Very
It's,
good.
Yeah, see how I
it
did
was
that?
recorded at the Ice House in Pasadena with Brian Redband. Brian Redband, of course, the head of Death Squad Studios, and he puts out a number of podcasts, including Joe Rogan's podcast, which I'm also a frequent listener of. But what Kevin has done with his podcast is amazing. He's had on incredible guests, everyone from Candace Bailey, an old colleague of mine, and Sarah Underwood, as well as people like Bobcat Goldthwait. He said on comedians, actors, just a lot of other really fascinating, interesting people. Really, just people, anyone that's interesting to him. And I'm glad that I finally got an opportunity
That's
for
awesome.
Kevin and I to sit down and have a chat about. We talk a little bit about G4 stuff, but it was a great chat with Kevin. So here you are, Pointless with Kevin Pereira.
I took a big... Hey, Chris Gore is here, everybody. I'm going to give you a more formal intro, but I just wanted the folks that are listening at the gym or on the assembly line as lead-painted toys whiz by them. I don't know why they're listening in China, but I just wanted to introduce you in case you feel like chiming in. But I wanted to chat for a second about the week that I took off, because I don't often vacate the city, let alone the country. And I didn't this time. I went to Hawaii, but I used to have this overwhelming guilt that would consume me whenever it was time for a vacation. I felt like either I don't deserve it, or I shouldn't spend the money on it, or I'm letting down coworkers, or I'm letting down my employees in this case, or anybody. And it was always very, very hard for me to do. And then a couple years back, actually the president of G4 at the time said, fucking go. Just go. Just take a week and go. And then I'm okay, I don't know where to go, and this place is this much. And he said, look, and I really appreciated this advice. He says, go and make the memories that you want. Focus on the good memories, because you're not going to remember the price tag. Now, that is dangerous advice if you have no self-control. If you're a sexual addict or a gambler, not worrying about the price tag is going to get you into trouble in the champagne room. But for me on vacation, that was a little freeing, because it said, okay, I work hard, I should spend the money and have the time and get pampered. And I got fucking spoiled. That first trip that I took, it was unnecessarily opulent. I went to Cabo. It was amazing. And so now I have just the most overwhelming sense of entitlement when I go on a trip, that my radar just beams out looking 400 yards in front of me for any little reason that my perfect paradise is being disturbed. And it happened in Maui. And I couldn't be more upset than that. Hop on a flight, first class to Maui, sipping papaya mimosa. It is amazing. And by the way, the Cloud Pen, which we will talk about later, I'm not saying I used one or had one on that flight, but I'm saying that I hit 10,000 feet well before the pilot announced it. It's amazing.
Attaboy.
But I land, and I should be in a pristine paradise, and it was. I'm in Maui, rental car, get to the hotel, we check in. It's a resort. I get the suite has been newly renovated. I'm like, this is going to be the vacation of all vacations. I got 6 days here. It's going to be wild. And then I hear some jackhammering. Some of the resort is under remodeling. They didn't say anything. Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, I'm trying to zen out. Go to take a shower. It's this beautiful open-air shower with this big old tub in there, and I'm already going through the Pereira Sutra of how I'm going to bend people over, probably against their will, where I'm going to line. You do that, right? When you go to a new area, you analyze the fuck positions, right?
All the places.
You draw the little Venn diagram. And then I look at, okay, where am I going to be watching you jizz on my phone by myself, because that's what happens on vacay. And I hear the jackhammering. I turn on the shower, the warm water. Okay, this is going to be nice. Warm water's out. Okay, that is 2 fucking giant strikes. So, I call the front desk. We're talking about it. Listen, we're under some renovations. We're going to knock a little bit off the bill. Don't worry about that. And again, I'm not concerned about the price now. I'm all for spending the pennies to be that entitled, to be that elitist trip asshole. But what put me over the edge was the next morning at breakfast. I was able to get through the night, to sleep it off and say, I'm not going to let this resort ruin my Zen state. And we go to this restaurant called capiche? For breakfast. A breakfast that they're serving for only 2 hours. And I wake up at 11 and breakfast is done at 9. So I'm pissed about that. And I sit down and, what would you like to drink, sir? I'll have some coffee. Oh, that's fantastic. It's self-serve over there. You just grab the little paper cup and push the little button. And I was livid.
Wow.
How dare you expect me to get up from my seat and pour my own coffee? I expect Juan Valdez himself to descend from the mountains with his haggard old fucking donkey to beat him with a thing of sugarcane. I know that violates canon. He's Colombia, but I don't give a fuck. Airlift him in his burro to Maui, have him come down, and I want that donkey to shit out some premium cocoa beans into a K-cup that they brew for me and pour into a handcrafted, hand-blown coffee cup. But nay, I poured my own coffee. And I did it. I did it. Because I'm a grown-ass man, and I wasn't going to throw a tantrum, and I sat down, and I said, damn it, Kevin, just get zen, enjoy the beautiful vista, relax. There are families around you. There are couples. They're giggling. They're Eskimo kissing. They're melting with love and joy. Just stop fixating on this coffee cup. And then that bitch waitress handed me the menu. On the top of the menu, which, by the way, was a sliver of paper no thicker than a Post-it that was stained by some other asshole who probably spilled lukewarm coffee out of his paper illy cup. I look at the top of the menu where it says capiche in a beautiful Italian italic font. I don't know how font can be ethnic, but it looked like it was trying to be. And it was low-resolution artwork. A low-resolution JPEG of the Capiche logo at the top of the paper, and someone tried to make it larger on the piece of paper to make it a little bigger, and clearly they clicked and drag, and I'm clearly not even Photoshop. They're using MS Paint.
They didn't use Illustrator.
No, and they didn't hold the shift key, so it was improper proportions, a logo that was stretched improperly, and I literally lost my shit at the restaurant, and I was so pissed, and I'm pointing to Bria. I'm like, look at this fucking menu. And she's like, yeah, the dishes look amazing, don't they? There's local poi poo or whatever the fucking thing. And I'm like, no, aloha to this place. If you can't get the fucking aspect ratio right on your menu, I don't trust your chefs to not shit in their hand and then make my omelet. I was furious, and that was literally the tipping point. I lost my shit. I was angry, and I said, that's it, we're leaving. We packed our bags.
What?
We packed our bags, and I said, we're going to a better hotel. We're getting out of here.
Wow.
The Four Seasons.
Good job. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good job.
See, attention to detail is important.
I think it is. I watch
I agree.
Hotel Hell. Gordon Ramsay would have been pissed about that shit. No, and so
Was Earl Shive pissed off that you left?
So the entire time I'm sitting there, and I know that I'm being such a cunt about these little things, but it was the jackhammering, the water, everything else. I'm like, I spent way too much fucking money to sit here and deal with this, and that is my entitlement, and I own it, and I want that. So we go to the Four Seasons. And it's the fucking Four Seasons in Maui. It's amazing. You're paying way too much for a closet, but you're getting pampered left and right. And within minutes, I realize I don't belong at a Four Seasons because Bria and I are swimming in the adults-only pool, and people are around sipping their pina whatnots and their volcanoes and their Miami Vices, and they're all chatting, and I'm way too high for my own good and sipping something with dark rum, swirls on the top, and we're all chatting about relationships with people at the pool, and I come to my senses in the middle of a conversation. It was one of those things like, oh, I've been talking to you for 10 minutes. Where the fuck are we and who are you? And they mentioned, oh, we're on our honeymoon, and what are you guys doing here? And we look at each other and kind of laugh. Oh, we're here on vacation, just hanging out. And like, oh, well, you guys aren't married? No, we're not married. We've been together for, God, maybe it's our anniversary. It'll be about a year and in a month or so. And they go, oh, wow, but didn't you say you guys are living together? And I was like, yeah. Oh, that's pretty serious. You haven't been together for a year, and you guys are taking a trip, and you live together, huh? And I was like, well, she gave me the ultimatum, and it was, either I move in with you or I'm keeping the kid. So I said, come on, honey. And, rented a U-Haul a week later, put her a coffee table in the back of it, dropped her off at the clinic, and here we are. And that's when I realized they didn't get the joke. Clearly. I realized we had only been chatting for a few minutes. They don't understand my specific brand of humor. Clearly, the abortion joke did not play well in the pool because it was as if you could see the puddle of urine forming from me within the pool. They just slowly backed away, that warm radial effect of, oh my God, did she really give you an ultimatum? And then Bria does that battered domestic partner thing where she awkwardly clings to my elbow and goes, oh, he's kidding. There was no ultimatum, right, sweetheart? I'm like, oh, right. We have no business here at the Four Seasons. I cannot be controlled in that environment. But the week was amazing.
You're hilarious, Kevin.
Thank you, sir.
But that is a fun audience. It is a fun audience, an audience that will just recoil at things.
Oh,
That's my favorite, actually.
I did,
love that.
like, part of me felt bad that it was like, I like making friends on vacation, especially at a resort. You chat with people, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you have dinner with them later. These were folks that we had already established they were going to be there all week. So were we. So every time we saw them after that, it was just the awkward avoid eye contact or the, hey, how's it going? And you know what? I didn't give a fuck. I rather enjoyed it, actually. It was great. I like that I'm still me despite the elitist version of me that comes out on vacation. I'm still going to make the Planned Parenthood joke in the adults-only pool at the Four Seasons. And we had a phenomenal week, only amplified by the fact that I wasn't at Comic-Con, which was a decision that I made to avoid it this year, which is why I'm so happy to have you here, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduced him at the top, but he deserves a far more grandiose introduction than that. He is a printed publication connoisseur, a master of all media. He's got a podcast. You can see him on television. He is a writer. He is a stand-up comedian. He is a several-time published author. He is a father. He is a tender lover. He is a freedom fighter for all manner of foresty woodland creatures. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Chris Gore is here.
Thank you.
I'm also a Tinder lover.
The tender lover may be the only inaccuracy, but everything else I think is pretty true.
I bet you have your tender moment.
Hey, Doug, do you ever like to register websites?
Never.
Well, you do. You like to.
I mean, yes.
Look, when I registered PodCRASH.net or when I registered CelebritiesPoop.com, I use GoDaddy.com.
That's the only way to do it.
If you go to GoDaddy.com and you're a new user of GoDaddy.com, use the offer code PodCRASH. You'll be helping to support this show. You'll support me, and I can keep doing this podcast and bringing it to you free. Go to GoDaddy.com.
I'm doing it right now.
Use the offer code PodCRASH, and you can you can register whatever .com, .net, .anything that you would like. GoDaddy.com, offer code PodCRASH. There's so many different paths to success. I mean, you never finished college either, right?
No.
Yeah, so
got a semester in.
It's really all about, and the thing is, when I was working at Flint and whatnot, doing video game magazines and whatever, I would hire, I'd hire people who didn't have full formal education, people who had the full formal education. It has nothing to do with work ethic or, just how talented you are. I mean, talent really is a big part of it.
Talent and passion are really hard to read off of a resume. And, there's no, you can have all the certificates you want on your wall and framed, and that's great. For some professions, it's required. For some, it's not at all. And for some, it actually makes you less of a, it kind of puts you in a box and stunts your creativity, I think. Makes you think a certain way. Oh, this is the only way things can be done in an industry where the landscape is constantly changing.
Right. You can't teach that. You can't teach passion. It's either there or it isn't. So
you can beat it into a kid, though. My father did that.
Yeah, exactly.
Just be passionate about something. Be passionate about your hatred for me. Belt, belt, belt.
But I feel like that's an important thing, is to have that DIY thing. You can't teach that. You can. Right. There's certain things like, look, obviously medical, but there's certain jobs you really need formal schooling. But I feel like for a lot of the things that
I don't want a college dropout going like, I went to the library, I read all these books. Now I'm going to check your prostate. Why don't you go ahead and bend on over? I'm going to perform some brain surgery on you.
Right, but with how things are going to change medically in this country, maybe it would be a good idea to have some formal training and just some sort of simple procedures. I bet I could do stitches on myself if I didn't have to.
At this point, you probably could.
I probably could. I mean, if I can craft, I can sew up a wound.
So you launched this Film Threat Madness, and you had everybody telling you, you're not going to go anywhere. Good luck.
Yes, including my family, which was like, but not in a bad way. They were like being protective. They're like, are you sure you want to do this? But then Film Threat got attention, and I had people like, Steven Soderbergh would write me letters. And, I got to interview people like David Lynch, and I interviewed Charles Bukowski through the mail.
You tell that story, actually.
This is a weird thing of like, this was before the internet and before email, and it was really expensive to make phone calls. So I'm calling San Francisco, the Bay Area, to talk to Charles Bukowski, and like, hey, I'll mail you the questions, because to be on the phone for an hour would have been like $60. So I mailed him sheets of paper with a question at the top and blank, question at the top, blank, with a self-addressed envelope. About a month later, I got the same envelope back with all the stuff filled out. I got to think that's worth something.
Wow, yeah.
And then like little drawings he did in the margin. I did the same thing with Alan Moore when Watchmen came out. And he it's the best interview. I hate to say this is weird. I love Alan Moore, creative Watchmen, writer on Swamp Thing, V for Vendetta. The best interview I've ever read is the one that I did because it's like it's shit that like no one's asked him. It's insane, crazy stuff. I should give that to some magazine to republish. It really is because he's also a recluse, a guy who doesn't do a lot of interviews.
Sure. Where did this passion for the subject matter come from? Were you like in AV club a lot in junior high school? Were you just slammed into lockers?
Funny you should ask. Yes, slammed into lockers. Yes, I was on the AV staff where I was delivering 16mm projectors to the adult education people in the so I'd go to school during the day. Then I'd go deliver newspapers. I had newspaper routes from the time I was 9 to 19, delivering newspapers through college. Then I would go and deliver the AV stuff to adult education people. Then on the weekends, I had a job at a video store, Thomas Video in Royal Oak. So but the whole thing was, look, if you make money, you can buy the shit that you want.
Right.
So
Is that what it was for you? That was the hustle? Was just like, I need toys, I need collectibles, I need comics.
That was it.
Get those jobs.
It was the passion for like buying the stuff I wanted, whether it was like a car. And the thing is I wanted a car when I was 16. Most kids like, I want to get a car so I can go and get laid. I wanted a car so I could go see movies on the weekends. Right. So I had a car. The day I turned 16, got that license, and boom, I would. I arranged my schedule in high school so that like in my senior year, I could leave halfway during the day on Friday, and I would go and I would see every movie that opened that day. Every single movie. I would just buy one ticket, hop theaters, and just see every single movie.
It wasn't sad until you said the one ticket thing, Chris.
Exactly. Well, that's when it was easier. That's when it was easier to switch theaters. Now it's not as easy as to switch.
I was referring to the lack of company.
Right.
Exactly.
I was referring to the fact that it was just one, please.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, I was a player in high school.
Now that's what it was. So
Really.
what was your friend group in high school? Was it like D&D kind of crowd, or was it more video store friends?
It's weird. I'm not trying to drop names or anything, but I had a conversation with Richard Linklater, filmmaker who made Slacker and Dazed and Confused and some awesome movies. And I wasn't definable in the sense that, yes, I leaned more geeky, but like the jocks kind of liked me because I had a sense of humor. Mm-hmm. And I had a sense of humor about myself because I knew I was shitty at sports.
Right.
But I would just make fun of it. It's like, yeah, I suck, but you want me to stand here? I'll throw the ball as far as I just didn't care. And so I had friends in every group. I had burnout friends. Mm-hmm. I had nerdy friends, but the nerdy friends were too nerdy for me.
Right.
They were just like way like,
you could dip in, shoot the shit with them for a little while, but then you got to get out of that.
Yeah, right? Because I think that there were the geeks that were socially awkward, where it's like, oh man, you we're talking like
dried boogers.
Dried boogers and just socially awkward and
that. I'm sorry.
Like, no,
that nasal crust.
Yeah, the nasal.
I was in my programming friends back in high school. They always had like a flannel shirt with crust on the sleeve. Probably from the nose as well, and then just the nasal flakes.
Yes.
Just the rough, look like little coconut shavings, just rimming each of their nostrils, and they always had it.
Their members only was just like dried snot on the sleeve.
You can see the trail of it up the arm, like a snotty pit boy.
So I had friends, and like Linklater was like, oh yeah, that was me. Like I had friends in every group. Jocks, nerds, burnouts were pretty much the respective major food groups of high school.
Sure.
In terms of how the tribes bore out. But I was just into whatever I was into. I remember wearing like a military jacket because I was really into the movie Quadrophenia by The Who.
What?
Did you ever see the movie Quadrophenia by The Who? You know, that double album that The Who put out, they made into a movie. And it played midnights. I was always into going to see the midnight movies. It was the way, because I was too young to go see bands. Mm-hmm. So I would just see
the music movie.
The music movie that would have like all my favorite punk bands because I wasn't old enough to go see punk bands. So and then I saw Quadrophenia. It's like, all right, I'm going to wear this mod jacket. We are the mods. So that was my thing. So, but I was called fag a lot. Mm-hmm. I was called fag quite a bit.
To be fair, you blew half the marching bands.
No, I feel like that. Yeah, it's not a factual error. Not a factual. it's a factual error. I think I'd never sucked a cock. So I feel like, just point of fact, I'd like to say, even though called fag, not gay. So just to correct anyone that went to Royal Oak Kimball High School.
Why were they calling you that?
Because that is what young men do to it, the jockocracy, you know.
Sure.
I feel like I was right there as before the dawn of the nerds.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or the rise of the nerds.
Right. I mean, being a nerd wasn't cool by any stretch when I was
Right.
in high school or junior high school, but thankfully in our group, unless you had the snail trail or the crust around the nose, you could skate through pretty unscathed. You didn't get, no one was shouting fag your way because you had to
Right.
play Doom.
Right.
So we did all right.
I experienced that kind of bullying, but I just feel like it was my sense of humor that always was my protective shield. It was always like, yeah, you can't affect me because, brr, and then it would just like throw something their way and whatever. I was sent to the
Fag?
office.
I'll show you who's a fag. Look at all the dicks I'm sucking. Now what? Now what?
Exactly. It's the whole thing. Like, I think Kevin Smith has perfected this where it's like he will make a fat joke way before anybody else
Right.
makes a fat joke.
And
it's like,
he's way better at making a fat joke than you'll ever be, than anyone
good.
will ever be. It's just like, oh, he beat you to it.
Yes.
Who cares? And he's way better.
He's so good at that. Kevin Smith, love him for doing like perfecting that. That is the way that you disarm that.
Yeah.
So
and you have mastered fellatio to a point where I think calling you a fag is
Amazing.
derogatory. You're an artiste.
right, exactly.
You are a seminary
a
artiste.
master chef.
So when kids into your life, which you were pretty young to be.
Oh yeah, I
a
was a
dad
young
then.
dad. I was a young
So
dad.
what was that? I mean, how was balancing? Because you constantly the hustler. Where were you career wise when you're having kids in your mid-20s, early to
my God.
mid-20s?
Yeah, no, I was 25 when I got this girl pregnant.
Yeah.
And
Out of love and wedlock.
I had moved to Los Angeles and then was working for Larry Flint Publications, which we affectionately called, the company was LFP Inc. We said it stood for low fucking pay. Because it was the least. There was this magazine called Folio Magazine, which was the publishing industry trade magazine, and they published like, this is what you should get paid if you're an associate editor. This, it was always below the bottom of the scale.
Sure.
But for me, it's like, look, I dropped out of college. I feel grateful to be here. Like all my professional work experiences, I'm like, you're a fucking idiot for hiring me and paying me this much. I feel good about it, which is why my whole experience at G4 is probably different than a lot of other people's experience, because my whole thing is like, I feel grateful. I feel lucky. Can't believe I'm getting a paycheck for doing this. You're an idiot.
I want to get to Comic-Con if we can very
Yes,
briefly because
let's
because
talk about
again
that.
I made the decision to skip out this year. There was something about paying 20 times the amount that you should for a decent hotel room to wait 3 hours in line
$800
for
a night at the Marriott.
shitty meal. Yeah,
$800 a night at the Marriott.
And,
It's just
and then
disgusting.
jockeying over which party you're going to go to, but then someone gets upset that you didn't go to their party, and then you have to figure out if you want to even be upset that someone else took it personally, that you didn't go to their event. All of that shitstorm combined. And then to go like, well, I don't have to pay anything if I just go and do a gig there, but do I even want to work there anymore? I want to just enjoy it. So for me, I said, fuck it, I'm not going. But you are the Pied Piper of Comic-Con. You
Yes.
have yourself a great old time, at least it seems,
Yes.
from what the social media of the world would tell me. It seems like you do pretty damn well at the Comic-Cons.
I do love the Comic-Con. I've been going since 1990 when I first moved to LA.
Wow.
It was when it was actually just all comics at
Right.
a college. And now it's grown to this. In the last 10 years, I feel like Comic-Con's, though, been taken over by interests. I feel like Comic-Con is like Sundance, it's a victim of its own success.
Sure.
You know, no one believed that this little podunk, film festival in Utah, in Park City, would have turned into what it is today. But it's the outside interests that are making it a less satisfactory experience. And I feel like now Comic-Con is like that. It's sort of the companies that recognize that nerd is a demographic and nerd is a thing that can be taken advantage of. And it's the fleecing. It's like the fleecing of the nerds in a way. And I kind of resent it with certain factions and certain companies coming in and just going like sort of late to the game, going like, I'm a nerd, and then taking advantage of that audience. Fuck that. I've been going since 1990. My daughter pointed out on a recent episode of my podcast, PodCRASH, that she's been going since she was a fetus.
Right.
Which is true.
Yeah.
So
she, from osmosis, just didn't have a chance.
Yes,
It was
no.
just graphic novels and collectibles into the womb.
It really just, like every year she would go to Comic-Con with me.
Isn't it also
it's awesome.
I totally understand that argument, but isn't it also the fault of everybody who goes that
Yes.
that's been allowed to happen? Like
Yes,
I
it
remember
has.
I was there, it was either a year or maybe two ago that everybody's like, fucking Glee is here. And they had a
Right.
big old booth and like, motherfucking Glee is here. And guess what I saw? a bunch of motherfuckers at the Glee booth, happy to see the Glee stars and drinking slushies. So it's like, there's a handful of the tried and true that have been going there for ages, but it got big. Do you think it attracted a crowd that is inauthentic to what the spirit of Comic-Con should be? Or do you think that original crowd needs to have a new convention because
possibly
it's clearly much bigger and much crazier and co-opted?
I can only imagine it's kind of how sports fans feel about me when I'm tailgating. It's like I could give a fuck about guys playing with their balls.
Right.
I don't care.
I'm here for the brats and beers, guys. Let's do this.
Exactly. I don't care who wins the game. I'm like, is there a party around? Everybody's celebrating. I don't give. It doesn't matter. It's not going to affect my life. The outcome of the numbers on the scoreboard. It doesn't matter.
Right.
So I am that guy. Now I know how they feel about me. They're like, that guy's just a fan of being a fan.
Right.
He doesn't give a shit about what we're so passionate about. The NFL or whatever. Although I do like the NFL, but
no, but that's
how I feel.
That's a really valid analogy of
right.
Okay, do you even know what this convention's about?
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. I'm here. I'm having a fucking party. I'm dressed up. I'm doing whatever. So.
And my favorite thing is not the going to the official parties. It's really just hanging out in the hotel bars, talking to people about episode 1 being R9/11. Like that was just the worst, right. Man. That movie destroyed my life.
Right.
Still talking about it. So
the one time in that Hyatt bar, there's ever going to be a debate like that gets heated where everybody is in on it.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, so those are my favorite things.
So what happened this year? What did I miss? Were there crazy announcements? Were there drama?
Crazy announcements.
Was
there?
Yeah?
A lot of good ones. Like, there's a couple things. Zack Snyder announced. See, I don't know how this affects Man of Steel 2. They're making Man of Steel came out and didn't fail but didn't perform.
I thought it was okay.
Yeah,
I thought the action was fucking amazing. I mean,
amazing,
Snyder directs the action like no. Yeah. I mean, there were amazing fights. A lot of collateral damage.
Yes, why did that? Exactly. My whole thing is looking at this going, so is Superman going to help clean up? Because that's what a real hero would do.
Right.
There's like 9 buildings falling over. Like, this is worth. And then suddenly he's like at work, a couple weeks later, like, right. I'll take a job at the Daily Planet. I think that what that movie lacked was a sense of fun. A sense of fun and a sense of humor. It didn't have that. It was very dark and very serious, and that I feel was achieved
That's
well.
True. Well, when you said that, I initially was
balance.
like, wait a minute, the action was really fun, but you know what? The action was pretty much like Pacific Rim had fun with its action at times.
Yes.
The joke with the little balls that clack or whatever, the little, there was that moment of this is an epic battle, but we're going to take a moment and giggle at how silly it is.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. I think the Man of Steel sort of lacked that brevity.
Yeah.
But he made an announcement about 2?
They announced Man of Steel 2 before Man of Steel even opened. And then they've announced in 2015 a Superman-Batman movie. So it was transposed over the logo. So you see the Man of Steel logo that we've seen. Then behind it is the logo, which looks like it's from Frank Miller's Dark Knight. And there was a passage that was read from the Dark Knight, the Dark Knight Returns comic by Frank Miller, which to me changed everything and changed movies and all that. That was the seminal, when that comic book came out in the 80s, that changed forever how superhero movies were done. And it's a passage about Bruce Wayne writing like, Clark, you will know the man who beat you, the man who defeated you, the only guy who could. So it really looks like they're pitting Superman and Batman against each other. The whole thing is who's going to
epic.
Yeah, it sounds epic. Who's going to play Batman? Who knows? I mean, Henry Cavill, obviously Superman, or is this a standalone movie? I don't know. Nothing really specific other than a logo and a date. A year, 2015.
But at a Comic-Con, that's enough to make the waters as frothy as can be.
Exactly. So there was that thing. I mean, just like a lot of like panels and whatnot. I mean, Dan Harmon coming back to Community, which was a fun little thing where he came up dressed as Iron Man.
Back.
Yeah.
I love, I know personally many people on that show. I respect it and appreciate it. But this last season Bria really tried to watch and tried to get me to watch, and even she, as a huge hardcore fan, was just like, oh, I don't know about this episode. And we're like, but the next one. Oh, I don't know about this episode.
And shout out to her. Congrats. She was on Marin.
She was on Marin.
She was great.
Yeah. Oh, I will thank you on her behalf. But
she was awesome.
I thought she was great. She played like a barista love interest kind of character who hopefully will come back season 2.
She was like a flighty 20-year-old, like the texting and this, and like Marin just didn't connect to.
Totally.
And it was awesome.
Totally.
Was
and
great.
she had a
Played
blast doing that too. But thank you. I know she'll appreciate hearing that. But did you diddle any cosplayers?
No, there was no diddling. No. I was. The thing is, I was very focused on like I had an album release party for my book. Doing signings. I was basically there to promote my book, and then also network, because really that's how I get hired a lot, is from just having a presence at Comic-Con. And I've the last 3 years I've spent trying to make a sea change in my career of like, because let's be honest, the job of film critic is dead. It doesn't matter.
Anybody with a Twitter account can claim that they're an expert critic.
It's the sort of mass opinion of people on Twitter that really matter.
Right.
And I really think that like film criticism has been democratized. I mean, I may know more than most people, but I always feel that people have the right to have their opinion. It's based on their experience and whatnot. Right. Maybe I've seen more movies, so in context, my opinion might be, but it doesn't matter. And so that job, and in fact, newspapers all over the country are just firing people from that job. They just will put, what the Rotten Tomatoes score is.
Right. Here's your Metacritic ranking, and good night, everybody.
And that's fine. So that job is dead.
Right.
And when they invent a robot, then TV hosting will be a dead job also. You've heard about this thing. There was an interesting thing. I was talking to Stephen Glickman, this comedian, about how you get paid a chunk of money, and as an actor you go in and they film you in all possible ways, saying all possible combination of words. Then they take that and you can use that as you can actually buy it and license it and then use it for programs.
Yeah, you can use it as like virtual assistants on websites and stuff where you'll pop up and you'll say, hello, welcome to this website. And your voice is a little disjointed and the inflection's weird, but yeah.
That's the future. It's weird.
Totally. Yeah, you can be a talking head on any show. You can be a pundit anywhere, a panelist. It doesn't matter. It's an all-purpose thing.
Comedian is better. Comedian is a better way.
I've gone out and auditioned for gigs and gone in for shows and met with producers and killed it. But then the network has said, "Oh, but we want a comedian in the role."
But and Kevin, you're better than most comedians.
I would never. I can't do what comedians do. I respect the craft of getting. I mean, I tried to in my own little ways go on stage and do jokes from now and then. But it was crazy to me that the notion of because I haven't done it at the comedy club and gone on stage, grabbed a mic, and then told a story. But, this podcast doesn't count. The 1,500 hours of live television, those don't count. Like, nothing counts because I'm not a comedian. So it's a smart pivot. It's a very, very smart play.
You could do it. I mean, like, Brian, I'm sure, would have a lot to say about this. But, like...
Brian tells me I couldn't, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Did he destroy your dreams?
But he's very honest, and he's very polite about it. He's just like, he's like, I've been doing it for a little while now, and I know what it takes, and you don't have it. And I respect your honesty.
I really think you'd be an awesome comic. You're quick, you're fast, you're funny.
I just don't know how
That's all I was looking for. I was just fishing for that, baby bear. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? I miss you. I miss
I've been trying to find this fucking Breaking Bad, like the actual video where the guy takes off
Bryan
his mask.
Cranston, right? He pulls
that
off
was one
the
of
mask.
the coolest things from Comic-Con. Like there was at least 4 or 5.
Explain it for those who don't know what it was.
All right, there was at least 4 or 5 celebrities that they can't walk around Comic-Con, because they'll get mobbed. So they'll wear masks. They'll wear like a Bart Simpson mask or whatever. Right. But
I remember Elijah Wood 2 years ago went around with the V for Vendetta mask on. It was 2 or 3 years ago.
That's what you have to wear.
It was amazing, yeah.
Because Deborah Mall, who plays Jessica on True Blood, she's the hot like schoolgirl, red hair. I interviewed her for Geek Time. One of the things I'm doing now is I'm on Geek Time with Ralph Cirilla on Howard 101 every Friday. So I do that from my loft downtown. They have this whole like satellite hookup. So I'm actually on. They're in New York. I'm out of my loft space.
ISDN line kind of thing.
Boom. That's the way it works. It's awesome.
That's awesome.
So great. So we interviewed her for the show, and she does cosplay too, just so she can walk around and buy stuff.
Right.
She's such a nerd. So yeah,
but Brian's talking about the celebs that go around because they obviously they'll get mobbed. They can't go buy things. But Bryan Cranston this year.
Yeah, he did this whole thing where he wore a mask of his character. In Breaking Bad, which was so
real looking. It's it's the Mission Impossible mask.
Yeah,
it's that doesn't exist, and he looks exactly like the Breaking Bad character. Takes it off, and you see that it's him. At the panel.
And what's crazy is that there's so many photos of people taking photos because it was such a good mask.
Right.
And so there's all these people like on the floor like, that's a great mask. And he would talk in a higher voice. He'd be like, oh, thank you. Like, I'm just a big fan.
That's amazing.
So cool. But like Sam Raimi has famously done that for years. Like he dressed as Zorro one year. And that's what celebrities have to do now. But I remember the days when going to Comic-Con and be like, oh my God, there's Francis Ford Coppola. Just going through comics.
Right.
Just like going through comics. And people would come up to him and be very polite and shake his hand.
Sure.
But there weren't the mobs. I was going to Comic-Con so long ago, I went when girls didn't go. And the booth babe thing didn't even exist.
Sure.
It was like, wow. Like a sighting of a woman at Comic-Con was like seeing Bigfoot. In the wild. It was like, oh my God, I think she's here on purpose.
Right. And she had the same proportions in body hair.
Pretty much.
So it was
not the most attractive.
spotting a Yeti.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about it? Because it sounds like you're still energized and jazzed and you like it and it gives you career opportunities and you can go promote your book and connect with your fans. On the other hand, it sounds like the inner nerd that's been a lifer is struggling with the fact that it's co-opted and it's bullshit and now it's too much noise in major movie studios. So
there is a little of that. I mean, there is sort of that because the people have been going forever. It's like, hey man, it's sort of like having like your favorite bar that like, I love this dive bar. All my favorite people are here. This is great. Every time I go here, it's fun. And now a certain other audience that never would go to that bar suddenly is at your favorite bar, and you're like, dude, this was our bar. You kind of took over our bar. Right. So there's a little bit of that. But I mean, so what? I mean, it's you know what? It's
still there. You can still find comics there. People still go to the panels. They still pitch art. There's still panels on how to draw and how to sell and how to do everything right. So it's still like, it's so much. It's so much. Yeah, big, it's overwhelming. And so noisy that's why I had to detach, at least for this year. It's like last year was a crazy sloppy mess for me, and I'm like, you know what? A week away from it all would make a lot of sense for me.
Like I've stopped going to Sundance. Like if there's a reason for me to go, a business reason, I'll go, but it's not fun like it used to be. I don't think I could ever detach from Comic-Con that way. There's something about it that feels more vacation to me. It's like this habit that I can't,
Totally.
Whatever. But also I feel like even complaining about it, I just sound like a curmudgeon. Back in the old days when we would go to Comic-Con, it was so much more fun than when all these other people would go. It's like, fuck it, you know what? It's also like to me, like when I will see like old punks make fun of Hot Topic, like, oh yeah, you go to Hot Topic and get your blah, blah, blah. But it's like, I wish there was a Hot Topic when I was a kid growing up. I wished when I was a kid, rather than being called fag and going and like sort of doing punk rock where I would just like I would actually make shirts out of spray paint and old t-shirts of my favorite bands because I couldn't afford the band shirt, right? And so, but I wish there was something like Hot Topic where that existed. And so it's like, you know what? It's become more mainstream. Is that really a bad thing? I mean, it just basically the tent just needs to be larger. I think that's the only issue is the tent's not large enough for everyone that wants to be there.
Yeah, the animals are spilling out of it.
Which is why they need to take Hall H and put it at Petco Park. Cordon off a section, throw up tents, have it 30,000 people can come and go as they please, and everyone from Comic-Con will be able to attend, and or something where they televise them via satellite and you pay $50, like a TED conference thing, and you just get to see everything virtually, some way to broaden the audience. I feel like that's my only complaint. You know what? I feel like that's coming eventually. So whatever. It's like, to me, we consider a complaint about it. It's like, I feel like solutions are a better way to look at it. I was arguing someone should come up with an app. Because you know how hard it is to get badges now? Mm-hmm. Someone developed this app. Please steal this idea from me and make $1 million and just put me in the credits. Borrow a badge. Like, I get badges, but I can't use, like, I'm not going to go, today I'm going to spend by the pool.
You're going to go for one day, and then, okay, I'm getting out. I'm in for 2 and leaving. Yeah.
GPS, and it's like, hey, you can borrow my badge for 2 hours, and you have, like, a little slot, and you can just borrow badges. I know that there's I'm sure that negates a certain, I'm sure there's certain legal reasons why that shouldn't exist. You know, as someone who's developed software projects yourself.
For an event that's always at capacity, there could easily be a use for that. Like, keep your badge in the cloud. It's DRM'd, and if you want to lend it to somebody for a moment, that's fine, but you can't use it on your phone for that minute. I mean, there's probably a way to do it.
There's a way to do that, like a borrow a badge. So it's the same number of attendees.
They're also making so much money that they just don't fucking care. Yeah, that's kind of the bottom line. Like, until people stop going because it's overcrowded or way too noisy or blah, 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 they're not going to give a fuck.
Right.
Brian, what was your experience at Comic-Con? Because I know you had
Did you go to the Marvel
a
panel?
Death Squad thing down there.
I didn't go to any panels. I don't like the panel thing. I just go there to buy stupid Pokemon shirts and stuff like that because I'm a grown adult.
You go there.
You got to collect them all.
You like nerd girls, don't you?
I'm there just for the Asians. Actually, it's if you have an Asian fetish, it's the best place to ever go to. Right?
You need a booth at a hall, and it's like Asians line up here. Okay, now all those with daddy issues line up there, and that's Brian's table.
Right.
Just hop on up.
No, this is I think my third time, and I had more fun this time. It is too crowded. It's annoying and stuff like that. But it's I go to some of these conventions like E3 and AVN and stuff like that. This is always the best convention. It's always the most
better than AVN.
Yes, it's more beautiful women than AVN.
That is true.
Like some of the hottest women in the world are at Comic-Con. Mm-hmm. Like it, and the whole area is
with
a
the goods
party.
on display too, under the guise of cosplay.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, whatever you want to call it. Let me see them tatties.
But a girl that's a 6 in cosplay is an 8.5. You know what I mean? Like, wow.
There's a
you've got-
Comic-Con bump. Yeah.
There's a Comic-Con bump.
There's a radial effect where
And-
you go, okay, fishnets and fake
sure, for
eyelashes.
sure.
All right.
And the competition, for the most part, like the guys, you don't have to really worry about. Like what like Harry
dude.
Potter's going to get pissed off because you're talking to his
No,
girlfriend.
Dude, Brian Redband is a good-looking guy. He's a good-looking guy. At Comic-Con,
Put him in.
you're fucking Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
He's a god.
You're
You're
Brad
USDA
Pitt.
choice.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of PodCRASH. I really want to thank Kevin Pereira and Brian Redband. Kevin from Pointless. He's doing a great podcast. It's a must-listen every week. Follow Kevin at K Pereira. That's spelled Kpereira. It's so simple, folks. You can also visit, you can find Kevin on Facebook. You can also visit his website, supercreative.tv, or go to kevinpereira.com. Also, look up Brian Redband and all the Death Squad episodes. Doug, I really want to thank you actually
absolutely.
for
Thank you so much.
getting me into D23.
It's been a blast, Chris. I've been really enjoying this, and I can't wait for 2 years from now when we get to do this again.
We're doing D23, and we'll also be doing Star Wars Celebration also here in Anaheim at the Anaheim Convention Center.
2015 is a busy year. Lots of conventions.
2015 is going to be amazing. And you can follow me at that Chris Gore. You can follow the show at PodCRASH Show. Go to podcrash.net for all of your PodCRASH needs. Also, download the app. Yes, there's a free app for iPad, iPhone, Android devices. And you can hear the announcer
Totally. Let's go.
right here in the hall as things continue
This is
here.
real. This is real time, people.
This is really happening.
Effects. It's not special effects at all.
It's not special effects at all. I just want to say thank you, guys. I also want to say one last thing. Let's get out of here.
So, have a wonderful time. It's in stage 28. It's going on right now.
Now I am the ruler of all the ocean. The waves obey my every whim. The sea and all its spoils bow to my power.
Hey, if you're still listening to this, you're probably a lot like me. You're the kind of person that stays to the end of Marvel movies, so you can see that little tag at the end. Or you're the kind of person that stays to the end of every movie because everyone seems to be stealing what Marvel's doing by putting a little tag at the end. And if you're that kind of person, you and I are a lot alike. And I like you, and for that you shall be rewarded. Send a self-addressed stamped envelope to PodCRASH with that Chris Gore, 5042 Wilshire Boulevard, PMB 1500, Los Angeles, California 90036. I will return your self-addressed stamped envelope with the PodCRASH Fan Club Kit. It's absolutely free with a self-addressed stamped envelope. You get a membership card, you get a personal letter from me, you get a little puzzles and activity page, you get a sticker, a PodCRASH sticker, and the only way to get it is by sending me a self-addressed stamp envelope. You can also actually order a copy of Celebrities Poop at celebrityspoop.com. I'll send it to you too. And here's a bonus piece of audio from Pointless with Kevin Pereira. Give it a listen. Later, into the good sex when you are in a long-term relationship.
Right.
Because
she's not going to call the cops.
She's not going to call the cops. That trust is there, and you can get into the really dark, fun stuff because there's that trust. And you could say, you know what, maybe we went too far on this thing, we won't do that again. But you know you're going to be together, and you've established that. So
that is when you say the really fun dark stuff, that is an asterisk. That is a wild card that could mean you guys play laser tag while lubed up, or it could mean you cut her with razor blades and giggle. Like, I don't know what you mean by the fun dark stuff.
Yeah, well, it's, in the BDSM, S&M stuff. I mean, that kind of fun stuff.
So you love
Kevin, you've talked about stuff.
Wait, so you wanna like the inner Boy Scout comes out. You want to tie her up in a few knots and let her dangle from something.
Absolutely.
And is that an every time thing?
I am the rope whisperer. That's what I am when it. But
Chris has his lasso again. Watch out.